The Iranian regime thought they had it all figured out. Close the Strait of Hormuz, make the world bleed, let the clock run out on Trump. Wait for a Democrat, get the sanctions relief, get the nuclear deal, and go right back to building the bomb. That was the plan. That was always the plan. But something just happened in the last 72 hours that has completely blown that strategy to smithereens. Iran just lost the one ally it was counting on to protect it from maximum pressure. And now, President Trump is signaling he's about to go up the escalation ladder in a way that Iran is completely unprepared for, and the world will never be the same. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So let's start with where things actually stand right now with the Iran war. The Strait of Hormuz has been effectively closed since late February, when American and Israeli strikes decapitated Iran's military and political leadership, and the IRGC retaliated by blockading the world's most critical energy choke point. 20% of the world's seaborne oil used to move through that narrow strip of water every single day. It's been shut for over 2 months. Gas prices in America have climbed more than $1 a gallon. Brent crude briefly touched $95 a barrel. The International Energy Agency called it the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Airlines raised baggage fees because jet fuel spiked 95% in North America. And the Pentagon, in testimony to Congress just last week, put the total cost of the war thus far at $29 billion, which, to be fair, is a bargain compared to the trillions of dollars squandered in Iraq and Afghanistan. $29 billion to take out in one fell swoop the single most aggressively destabilizing regime in the Middle East, while at the same time boxing out China from controlling Hormuz, is a heck of a bargain when you compare it to the colossal cost of Iraq and Afghanistan in both dollars and days, as it were. We've been in Iran for 2 months, and we were in Afghanistan for 20 years. Now, in the meantime, what's left of the Iranian regime has yet to fully crack. Using the ceasefire as cover, the IRGC is still running military drills in the Strait. It calls the Martyr Commander exercises, specifically designed to use drones, fast boats, anti-ship missiles, sea mines, and GPS jamming to keep commercial shipping terrified and insurance companies refusing to underwrite to cover any transit. Now, Iran's strategy here is very interesting, and it's very clear. Their strategy is not to defeat the United States Navy in open battle, right? In head-to-head combat. They're not that stupid. They know they can't win that way. Their strategy is to make the strait so dangerous, so expensive, so legally uninsurable that no shipping company sends a vessel through it, regardless of what any Navy does. Now, U.S. forces could destroy the weaponry and equipment that Iran is using to conduct these military exercises, easily, in fact. But apparently they're hiding behind a number of mines, these exercises that Iran is conducting. They're hiding behind a number of mines that have been placed in the Persian Gulf, so the mines would indeed have to be swept first. There's also an escalation ladder risk. Destroying the equipment means attacking Iranian territory or Iranian naval vessels directly, which would end up triggering Hezbollah remnants in Lebanon and completely disrupt the ceasefire. Attacking what's left of the IRGC force would also wipe away, ironically, negotiating leverage. So right now, the intact IRGC naval force, what's left of it, is paradoxically actually a diplomatic asset for Washington. As long as Iran has something to stand down, right, equipment to withdraw, forces to pull back, mines to locate, there's a negotiated off-ramp that allows the regime to at least in part save face while reopening the strait. But also, and this is the ace in the hole, given what just happened in China, Iran's last official ally, and the way Xi just turned his back on Iran and called for the strait to be fully open, meaning, yo, Iran, enough, it's time to back down. Given that, There's all the international pressure in the world to get Iran to finally concede defeat. So here's the core of what we need to understand. Iran's strategy for surviving this war has always rested on two pillars. One, Russia. Two, China. So for years, the conventional wisdom was that as long as Beijing was quietly buying Iranian oil through shadow fleets and ghost ships, relabeling Iranian crude as Malaysian or Indonesian, as long as they were doing that, Iran could survive any level of American pressure because they had China had their backs, basically. China was importing roughly 1.38 million barrels of Iranian oil per day, according to the trade intelligence firm Kepler, which tracks actual tanker movements. But the IRGC made a catastrophic miscalculation. When they closed Hormuz, they didn't just hurt Europe. They didn't just hurt Japan. They didn't just hurt the global oil market. They hurt China directly. 45 to 50% of China's total crude oil imports and nearly a third of its LNG comes by way of Hormuz, or at least it used to. That's all now been totally interrupted. That's an existential energy security crisis for one of the world's largest industrial economies and what was once Iran's really last remaining ally. China has stockpiles for sure. They had about 1.4 billion barrels in reserve, roughly 120 days of net imports, but that clock's ticking. And every day the strait stays closed, Beijing bleeds. And then Donald Trump flew to Beijing. And what came out of that room changes everything. Gang, you have all got to go right now to turleytalkscrypto.com. I'll tell you why in a moment. What I'm about to share with you is the single most blatant Wall Street about face of our lifetimes. In 2017, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink called Bitcoin, I kid you not, quote, an index of money laundering. Bitcoin was money laundering. Today, BlackRock holds over 800,000 Bitcoin. We're $63 billion. That's more than the United States Treasury has, more than any nation on earth has. So here's the question every patriot needs to ask. The same Wall Street establishment that called Bitcoin a scam for 10 years, that mocked you for asking about it, is now its single largest buyer. Are you watching what they said, or are you looking at what they're doing? Gang, this is the great financial reversal of our lifetime. President Trump put Bitcoin in America's strategic reserve. BlackRock is buying it by the billion. The Bitcoin Act in Congress authorizes $1 million more for the Treasury. The only people not in the room, the everyday Americans, told it was too risky for their retirement. Well, that's what I want you to know about Block Trust IRA. They built the platform that lets you do inside your retirement account exactly what BlackRock and the U.S. Treasury are doing on their balance sheets. Institutional cold storage custody through SFOX and AI portfolio management through their amazing Animus AI system. I've been a client of Block Trust IRA for months now, and gang, I can tell you I love them. Right now, for Turley Talks listeners only, go to turleytalkscrypto.com, get up to $2,500 in free crypto when you fund a qualifying account, plus a complimentary 30-minute call with their team where you get real answers and real solutions. Wall Street laughed at Bitcoin for a decade. Now they're buying it by the billions. Don't be the last one in. It's time to take control of your financial destiny. Go to turleytalkscrypto.com. At the Trump-Xi summit on May 14th, both presidents agreed publicly in front of every camera in the world that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open. Both agreed that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Xi Jinping publicly opposed the militarization of the strait and any Iranian tolling system for passage, directly shooting down Iran's floated plan to create a so-called Persian Gulf Strait Authority that would have forced every ship in the world to get IRGC clearance before transiting. And then Xi dropped the bombshell. He expressed direct interest in purchasing more American oil from Texas, Louisiana, Alaska, specifically to reduce China's long-term dependence on Hormuz and on Iran. Let that hit you. The largest buyer of Iranian oil on the planet just told the United States it wants to buy American oil instead of Iranian oil. So while Russia's bogged down in Ukraine, China just stood next to America's president and agreed that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and the strait must be reopened. Both pillars of Iran's insurance policy have cracked. Russia and China, they have cracked simultaneously. Iran thought China was on its side. Unfortunately, the only side President Xi on, unfortunately for Iran that is he's on China's side and no one else's. And unfortunately for Iran, it's about to get a whole lot worse. And that's because the calculus is changing, and it's changing very, very fast. The midterms clock is approaching, which means that Donald Trump's window to finish this is coming to its end. If Republicans lose the House, or especially if they lose the Senate, Trump's ability to sustain this campaign, fund it, authorize ongoing operations, and pursue the kind of maximalist outcome that prevents Iran from ever going nuclear, all of that goes away. And he knows this. His team knows this. And Iran knows this. That's why they keep stalling and delaying in these negotiations. This delay tactic, ironically, is actually eroding the timetable for strategic patience. If Iran continues stalling, running out the diplomatic clock while keeping the strait closed and oil prices elevated, if they continue to do that heading into the November midterms, the political cost of not acting for Trump starts to exceed the strategic cost of acting. And so that's why Iran's stall tactics are ironically putting them more and more in harm's way. At that point, you will likely see a targeted, systematic campaign against IRGC naval infrastructure specifically designed to eliminate the harassment capability while leaving Iran's land-based political structure relatively intact, essentially decapitating the blockade without triggering a full regime collapse scenario. That's almost certainly what's going up the escalation ladder actually means in practice. In the meantime, Iran's main oil export terminal at Karg Island has had zero oil loaded in days. The U.S. naval blockade is holding. Iran's storage tanks are full. Satellite photos show Iran is beginning to physically shut down oil production because there's literally nowhere left to put the oil. No ships getting in, no ships getting out. Iran's oil economy is not just hurting, it's actually beginning to physically stop. The comprehensive squeeze, right? The military blockade of Iranian ports, sanctions on the shadow fleet, a joint public statement with China that the strait must stay open, a commercial incentive for China to replace Iranian crude with American production. And we didn't even mention the Saudi and UAE covert strikes on Iranian territory, right? That was confirmed last week by Reuters, by the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. All of this means that Iran's isolation is now total in a way it simply has never been before. So next up, Trump is going up the escalation ladder. He has to. The time constraints demand it, and the strategic logic demands it. Donald Trump is not going to let this moment pass. The midterms are coming. China has given him the signal. The strait is still closed, and the escalation ladder has a few more rungs left. Iran is about to find out who they're dealing with, and when they do, it's going to change the world.